Okay, everybody, good early evening here on this Monday. Seattle Seahawks did indeed have another training camp session today. It was not open to the public, I don't think, but the beat reporters were there, and we did get some pretty good information coming out of the VMAC, so I thought I'd go ahead and make a video here to pass along the things that I heard about during the day. It seemed like the intensity of the training camp session definitely picked up. Granted, things are never going to be as exciting as they were on the first day, but nevertheless, it does seem like things are starting to get to a higher level of intensity, and this is building towards eventually having a padded practice. I think in like 2 or 3 days or something like that, we're going to have a padded practice. So let's take a look at what we got here. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So, looking at some of the things that went down today, the first thing that kind of caught my attention was not at the VMAC actually. It was on Seattle Sports Radio. Gray Zabel actually did an interview over there today, and he talked about some fun things. Talking about Leonard Williams being the best defensive tackle in the game, and how it makes him feel better when he gets whooped by him in practice. So having a little bit of fun over there. But then he got into talking a little bit about Brian Fleury, and this is kind of the thing that was talked about when this team was explaining why they hired Fleury. So, according to Gray Zabel, Brian Fleury sees the game differently than 99.9% of people. It's one of those deals where he gives us answers to the test when we don't even know the question's going to be there. It's remarkable what he's done in the short time he's been here. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know exactly how to parse that statement. But one thing that we heard about Fleury is that when he came in for the interview process, he did things that nobody else they were looking at was capable of doing. He said things in a very particular way, and he showed his thought process was just different than everyone else's, and that really jumped off the page to John Schneider and Mike McDonald. And look, this is a big risk, right? You're hiring an offensive coordinator that has never called plays before on a team that is trying to defend a Super Bowl title. That is a risk. That is a risk that the Eagles took last year, and we all saw how that went. So it is a gamble, but this is the kind of stuff that tells you why it happened. There's a belief that even though Fleury is not an experienced NFL play caller or a play caller at any level, there is something that he brings that is just valuable beyond experience. And seeing it from somebody else is good. We'll see how it translates to the field. He also said some things that were relatively boilerplate when you're talking about this offense. I think we're going to run the ball first, which I'm super excited about. We're going to establish the run and move the line of scrimmage, which not too different from last year, right? Not too different from last year. Last year, that's what this team did. And you wouldn't expect things to change all that much. Obviously, the players we have in the backfield have changed. We don't have the same running backs we did last year, but the fundamental philosophy remains the same. This team will be a run-heavy team, and obvious offensive linemen like it. Offensive linemen like it when they get to run block. So the difference, hopefully, this year will be the run blocking is better, because I don't think the running back play will be better. It could be eventually, but not this year. So I'm hoping that the offensive line's run blocking, which was not great last year until near the end of the year, can maybe step up a bit to compensate. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. One other quick little non-VMAC related comment here as well from Greg Bell. Dante Fowler talked about how Aiden Byrd and to a certain extent DeMarcus Lawrence tried to convince Fowler to sign in Seattle last year, and he signed back to Dallas instead. Remember, Dante Fowler and Aiden Byrd interacted with each other on Atlanta and Dallas, and of course D-Law in Dallas. So I think we all kind of knew this, but this team has been pursuing Dante Fowler for a little while now, and this is somebody that they think fits what they do and somebody they coveted. So good to see that we were able to get it done this time, but it does it basically just tell us that yes, they did try to get him last year, and I wonder how things would have played out if it had gone that way. Would Boye Mafe have just basically been shelved almost? Would he have not even really been able to play at that point? How would we have balanced it out? But never happened. Okay, so now getting into some of the stuff that actually happened on the field at the VMAC. First we had Nemhauser, who by the way, doing great work over there at the VMAC. He's there. He's doing a lot of streams post practices. So definitely go check out the work that he's doing. He's one of the big voices passing along information. He did a little interview with Jalen Sundell, talking about a couple of different things, and some of the things that he mentioned included, first of all, he stood up for Anthony Bradford, which, I mean, I don't know what else you would necessarily expect a player to do. That's his teammate. That's the guy who's right next to him, but he definitely went to bat for I'm sorry, Anthony Bradford. But the standout part of what Sundell had to say was versatility is the name of the game in Seattle, where they have a lot of players who may not be the best in the world at any one thing, but they are very good at a lot of different things, and that is the key here. And basically, the conversation kind of spun into, is this going to become the new meta? You don't necessarily want a player that is the fastest or the biggest or the most powerful, but you want players that can be good in all those categories without sacrificing too much in another area. And this is definitely something we've talked about before with McDonald's defense, right? Where he doesn't necessarily want the best box safety or the best deep safety. He wants a safety that is good in both areas so he can disguise what he does. And it does make you wonder if maybe that's going to become the new NFL meta, where guys are going to be very flexible rather than dominant in one area and not good in other areas. So that's part of their conversation. So check out the rest of that over on his channel, Hawk Blogger. So talking about the practice itself. So a couple things. I want to talk about Jalen Milroe first a little bit here, because he's one of the more intriguing guys to watch in camp this year, and he threw an interception on the final, I think the final play of the day, to Michael Dansby. Shout out Michael Dansby, by the way. He's fighting, scrapping to make this team. But overall, it seems like Milroe looked better today, according to most of the stuff that I heard. He threw a touchdown to Nick Collerup. He had a couple completions outside the numbers, which is not something that is that has come naturally to him so far. So it seems like we're headed in the right direction there, which is good, because I've said it before. I think there's a lot of pressure on Milroe to show something good before we get to the end of this offseason, because once the season starts, you may not see very much of him at all. And I do wonder if we don't hear better things about Milroe by the end of this offseason, if maybe the plan starts to pivot away from him and towards another developmental quarterback. If if we have that opportunity to next year in a good QB class. Because this offseason is going to be maybe his last chance to show something. Because the draft is going to come along before any real offseason work gets underway next offseason. So Milroe, this is your shot. So at least he's making strides, apparently. Some of the other notes from Greg Bell concerning what we saw today. Derek Hall apparently looked good. I heard that from a couple people. You can see Greg Bell mention it here. Emmanuel Wilson worked with the ones a little bit, so they're definitely rotating the running backs. We've seen Price, Halani, and Wilson now working with the ones. And Rylie Mills, I feel like there are two players getting hyped a lot so far this camp. One is Rylie Mills, the other is Jadarian Price. And to me, if there's a narrative coming out of this camp so far, and it's only 3 days, those would be the three guys that are, excuse me, the two guys that I'm really looking at right now that have consistently, at the very least, gotten people's attention. It's not all perfect, right? Like Jadarian dropped a couple passes on day one that were pretty bad, but he's in the mix and he's showing that he can do some stuff that we weren't sure he could do. Yeah, here's another comment from Rylie Mills about Rylie Mills from Mike McDonald, called a football junkie by McDonald and praised his hard work. So there does definitely seem to be a sense that Rylie Mills is going to be a breakout star, and the fact that we are deploying him everywhere, apparently, all over the defensive line, like Greg Bell said, seems like we don't want to limit his snaps to what Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and Jaron Reed have left over. We want to find other ways to get him on the field, and this goes back to that versatility thing we were just talking about. Devin Witherspoon, all quiet as of me recording this video. No word on the extension. I'm ready for it to get announced, man. It is the 27th of July. And I mean, look, there's no more like time-related pressure at this point. This is something that's going to get done either tomorrow or a month from now, and it doesn't make that big of a difference. But I would like to see this thing get done for sure. But he's, according to everybody, locked in, not being bothered by it, doesn't seem concerned. And that's important because we definitely don't want to, if that takes a turn for the worse, that could indicate that things maybe aren't going well. And that's not what I want to be dealing with in a season where I'm trying to defend the title. Okay, so no more, nothing really to speak of on the Witherspoon front right now. Okay, let's get into Price. So McDonald had some good comments about Jadarian Price. You can see the decisiveness, the movement ability, the quickness, the speed, doing a lot of great things in pass pro, which I appreciate, excited about him. And the pass pro stuff is interesting, right? Because that's not something we've heard about yet this offseason. And that is something that he did not do a lot in college. When I watched the tape, they usually didn't even have him on the field. And to my eye, he did not do a lot of blocking. They usually had their third string back in for blocking. But apparently he looks good so far. Just attention to detail, be able to think on your feet. Catching passes, McDonald said it. There's a variety of things he can do out of the backfield right now. Not a lot of checking off things he can't do. So this is clearly a focus of this camp. To get Jadarian Price reps as a receiver and as a blocker to prove he can play on third down. And if it ends up being the case that Jadarian Price can play on third down, then that is going to make it a lot easier for him to be worth a first-round pick to this team, right? That is how he ends up with 250 touches this year, maybe, instead of 200. That is how this team can get by without feeling any negative after effects of losing Walker and not having Charbonnet for a chunk of the season. So good indications here. If it ends up being the case that he's good at it and he just didn't get a chance to do it in college for a few different reasons, then, hey, that is something that I'm going to be pretty excited about because that makes him, at that point, a complete back. Maybe not a bell cow back, but the point is there's no tell with him on the field, right? And generally speaking, from what I saw today, Price looked good, showed some speed, agility, and catching passes outside his frame. And I know there was a quote from Ernest Jones after the practice was over where he talked about how good Price looked. So we're definitely headed in the right direction there. And again, it's not like everything we hear is good, but we're hearing a lot. And that's really valuable right now because this is not a guy who built a ton of reps in college. So getting him reps now, really valuable. McDonald was asked about the conditioning test this year. A couple guys had to take it a couple times. Most everyone passed with flying colors. So no real indicator here of whether or not Josh Jones didn't pass it initially, if that was the problem, if that was why McDonald was a little bit annoyed with him. But it does sound like maybe somebody was causing a little bit of a problem because he did say most everyone. So that would be the assumption, right? Because nobody else seemed to have any kind of an issue this offseason other than players that we knew were battling through injuries already. We got Crabtree with a couple of or not injury notes, but a couple of holdouts. Horton and Lawrence did not practice. Lawrence being a veteran, he's going to have a lot of days off. Horton probably getting eased back in because he is coming off a pretty big injury. The only injury I heard of that happened today was Julian Neal leaving the field about halfway through. That's the only new thing that I heard about, but I did hear that Neal actually looked really good when he was out there. Showed some change of direction. There was a deep pass that he broke up. He looked really good coming forward. It seems like he's off to a pretty good start so far, and definitely a really good thing. It's kind of a meme. I don't want to read too much into this, but I know that there are definitely some Seahawks fans out there that aren't thrilled with the way Josh Jobe looks on these first few days of camp. I would hope those people aren't taking it too seriously, that he's not even, he's not even going at full speed. He's not wearing pads, and he's given up some catches to like JSN and Shaheed and Horton, but like I would hope that people aren't actually like panicking about that or anything. But if Julian Neal wants to go ahead and be ready to play earlier than we expect, then great. McDonald did admit that he thought the end of practice was a little bit messy, and he did say he wishes that was a little bit better. But other than that, he seemed to be pretty happy with the way the day went. He seemed overall pretty happy about it, despite wishing the finish was a little bit better. Let's see what else here. AJ Barner talked a little bit about his recovery from the off-season surgeries that kept him out until now, that he's feeling really good. They are managing his reps still a little bit, the same way they're managing guys like Horton, but that's more or less to be expected. We've got more than 40 days before we play a real NFL game, and AJ Barner, I mean, even if he's not 100%, he's going to be out there. Like, AJ Barner was playing through stuff all of last season, and it never seemed to affect him negatively. So, not really worried about anything there. But he spoke about how he feels really good right now. So that's some of the major stuff. I heard there were some good things about like Jalen Gaines. Apparently, Jalen Gaines made some plays in the backfield. Connor O'Toole looked good. Now, this is kind of the off-season trap, right? The training camp trap, where you have these players that you kind of know are just fringe NFL players, but they look good in camp because they get to go up against players that are not even fringe NFL players. So I don't want to, I don't want to pump these guys up. I don't want to hype these guys up baselessly, but heard good things about both those guys. So if you guys want to read into that a little bit, then feel free. It's certainly better than them not looking good, right? What else do we have here? Murphy looked good in the one-on-ones. We actually got some one-on-one pass rush drills today. He was beaten up on Christian Haynes and Gray Zabel, which, I mean, we would certainly expect him to beat up on Christian Haynes at this point, but he's also got Zabel outclassed pretty badly at this point. Anthony Bradford looked really good on the one-on-ones. Watch out for the contract year, Anthony Bradford. Do not count that guy out. Anthony Bradford, contract year, we might see a new gear from him. Charles Cross, Mason Richmond also looked good in the one-on-ones. I think that's really most of it. So that's kind of my general roundup of the things that I heard about what happened at the VMAC today. Mostly good news. One seemingly minor injury, but we'll find out more about Julian Neal later. And at the end of the day, when you look at what's going on with some of these other teams right now, like you look at what the 49ers are dealing with, you look at what the Panthers dealt with last week. You got nothing to complain about, right? You got nothing to complain about compared to some of these other teams or the Lions. Okay, so that is what I've heard today. That is what I've heard so far. Thank you for watching. Please give me a like, subscribe if you're new. Hype the video up as well, if you have hype ability left. And I will be seeing you guys soon. Maybe another video later, maybe not. But I think we're practicing tomorrow and should be getting some good information out of that as well. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good night.